it would be a good idea to invite some other Gakudo program owners. And hopefully you'll be able to get a nice kind of well-rounded perspective at with regards to sort of the shape of the program, the type of content that it has. Yeah, I mean, we all have very different programs, and they all work in their own way. So just sort of broaden your mind and let you think about different possibilities. All right, so I'm going to share screen here and start off with a little bit of intro slides. There we go. Okay, right, so there we are. There's Wayne in the picture, actually. So that's at our school. So our topic today, opening and running an English Gakudo. And I'm gonna quickly introduce our three panelist guests today. First of all, we've got Rebecca Ikawa from Red Gate Reading Academy. Rebecca calls her school a boutique school. It's a small school right in the urban part of Tokyo. I'm not exactly sure where, perhaps she can enlighten us later. And she has classes for English, like young learner English classes, as well as a smaller scale Gakudo program that's got a really nice kind of structure to it. And hopefully she'll tell us more about that shortly. Also, we have Robert Sieveking from Kabushiki Gaisha Audax, which is the company that owns the three parts of his school. He's got Stepping Stones After School, which we'll be talking about today, as well as an international school and also kids Eikaiwa, English classes for kids. He's in a more rural area, so hopefully he'll be able to kind of shed some light on that experience. He's got quite a big Gakudo, which is, I think, sounds like it's full to capacity. And they do have a strong emphasis on academics, on children really raising their English level and passing tests. I think at the end of 6 years at his school, some kids will pass the Cambridge CAT exam, which is an A2 level exam. So that speaks to the high level of English that his learners achieve. And finally, also, we are going to talk to Dale Berry, who's very serious about children's education and really understands how children's minds work. There's a cue for the chuckles. I didn't really ask him if I could use this picture, but I thought this would perhaps show the two sides of Dale, the straight and serious and the foolish as well. But yeah, we met last week for the first time and started to talk about children's education, and we geeked out for quite a long time. And he's somebody that has some really nice ideas and probably some things that you haven't thought of in terms of raising children and children's education. Dale is also closer to Tokyo. He's in Kawagoe, which is in Saitama, but it sounds like he's sort of between more urban areas and a more kind of rustic gap area. So our plan for the day, and this is a very ambitious plan. I do not expect to get through all of this. I'm going to start with a real quick chat on the market trends. Then we're going to talk a little bit about getting started. What are the challenges to getting started with running a Gakudo program? We'll talk to the panelists about their first years and how they kind of got to where they are. Then we'll talk a little bit about program structure, what type of shape your general Gakudo program will take. Next, curriculum and content. Regulations and subsidies is something that a lot of people wanted to hear about. So I've done a bunch of research and talked to some consultants on that. So hopefully I can give the best answers to any questions that come up. Finally, I'll look a little bit at pricing and expenses and kind of give you an idea of what a basic model could be. And then hopefully everyone else will have some more input on that. Finally, there'll be others, transportation, security, whatever. We're unlikely to have time on that, but we'll see how it goes. Great. So I will jump in and talk a little bit about the market trends now. So I'm going to start off with talking a little bit about the kids eikaiwa market. I think a lot of us maybe have got our start there or are still kind of focusing on that as our main business. And we'll also look a little bit at international schools before we jump into more of the Gakudo market. So the bad news is, we'll start with the bad news. As most of you know, the number of children in Japan is dropping quite quickly. From 2001 to 2021, it's gone from 7.3 million to 6.2 million, which is a whopping decrease of 15%, which if you're not alarmed by that, you probably should be, because that means that your total addressable market, if you're in the kids industry, is shrinking and continuing to shrink. There's no signs of that changing. But on the other hand, there are other things to consider in this. So according to the Yano research white paper, the kids eikaiwa market went from 90 billion yen to 95 billion yen from last year to this year. So that's actually an increase of 5.3%, which I think is more than anything a recovery from the dip that we had during COVID. When it comes to international preschools, it's a smaller increase. But there's more to be said about that. It's been 1.3% increased from the last year. And interesting points about that is that kids eikaiwa is still 10% down from the pre-COVID period in 2018. And even going back to 2014, we're still not quite back to that level. But there was a sort of a steady increase up until that point. In the preschool market, this is a little bit of a different story. So the increase from last year is smaller, but basically it's just increased even through COVID. And compared to 2014, there's been an increase of 24%. So that's something that's growing quite quickly. I think some of the reasons for that are also in what we're going to look at next when we talk about Gakudo. So preschool is not just English education, it is also child care. So there's a sort of separate trend that's influencing it a bit there. So let's take a look at the Gakudo market. So here are some key demographics. So despite the population declining and the number of kids decreasing, the number of double income families is increasing quite quickly. Since 1980, so that's quite a long time period. It's gone from 6 million to nearly 12 million, so nearly doubled in that time period. The number of single parents also has increased quite a bit, nearly doubled in that around the same time frame. 60% in just the last 10 years, or a little bit over the last 10 years, the percentage of women who were employed went from 60% to 70%. And the government, this is something that is partly affected by government policy. It's not something that's just sort of randomly happened. The government is aiming, the Kousei Rodo show is aiming to increase that number to 80% in the next several years. So with these changes, we can also look at the number of children that are registered in Gakudo programs. So in 1999, when the government scheme to actually have official Gakudos started, there were 360,000 students registered, elementary school age students. And in 2019, this was 1.3 million. So this is an increase of 360%. So quite a rapid increase. The number of facilities also has increased quite quickly. So yeah, going from 10,000 in 1999 to 26,000 in 2019. So with the increase, so the orange bars here show the increase of facilities. The blue line is the number of students registered. So even though the number of facilities is increasing quite quickly, the demand is still there and the number of students registered is continuing to rise quite steadily. This green line here is the number of students on a waiting list. This chart can be a little bit misleading in that this is in the tens of thousands, whereas the total number is in the hundreds of thousands in this range here. So on average, in the last several years, there's been about 17,000 students who have been on the waiting list to get into some sort of Gakudo program. And yeah, there hasn't been space for them. So all that just to say, there's an increase in demand, and that's continuing to go up. That's about all I want to say about the market trends. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that? I think Tyson, you're probably more well read on these numbers than I am. If you've got any questions or comments.
Sure. I would say you're more familiar about the Gakudo market, but from my end, in terms of targeting Japan for the kids market, it's kind of coincidental, but I would say in the last 2 to 3 months, I've gotten probably like 3 requests for people who want to make language learning apps
Mm-hmm.
for kids in Japan. So there's been an increase of that. And and I've also noticed that, so I do think there will be more learning apps in the future coming to Japan because the EdTech investment market is developing a lot around the world. And now that there has been success cases around the world in technology for kids or learning apps, I think some of it will start trickling to Japan. So this specialized knowledge has been developed in other countries.
Absolutely. The numbers that I've shown didn't really distinguish between online and live classes, but according to the market report that I read, online learning for young learners is also steadily increasing, although I still think it is quite minor compared to the overall. All right. Well, thank you very much, Tyson. I'm going to move on here. All right, so next we want to talk about the first year. I'm going to stop screen share there a little bit and we can talk about the more fun stuff. So real quick, I'll just talk about how I got started with our Gakudo, and then I'll talk to Dale, Robert, and Rebecca as well. So for me, I didn't really go into opening our Gakudo program with a very business mind. I was really thinking just that I came to understand that children studying English an hour a week would only progress so far, and that was always a source of frustration for me. I had the opportunity to do a teaching qualification in Vietnam, where I visited a large language school called ILA. I did the CELT-YL, which is a young, kind of like the kids version of the CELTA. And when I was there, I was just blown away by how well the kids spoke English. All of the kids at the school, and this was a huge building just filled with kids, and they were all really kind of at this conversational level. And I was just like, what's going on in Japan? Why are kids not able to speak like this? And yeah, certainly the market in Japan has been centered around these hour-a-week classes for a long time. I think things are beginning to change, but that is a sort of one form, the hobby, the kids eikaiwa. So I really wanted to know, yeah, right. So in Vietnam, what I noticed was one of the big factors was that kids were not doing an hour a week. They were doing 4, 8+ hours per week. And clearly that had to be one of the reasons. So when I came back to Japan, we opened longer classes of about 3 hours for kids. And those became quite popular and they filled up quickly. And then the reason that we decided to open up our Gakudo was just a space opened up in our building next to our school. And we just thought, it's not really the time for it, but the space won't always be there. So we opened it up and we decided to put into play the idea that we've been talking about for a long time. So we opened a Gakudo, and we were pretty lucky. In our first year, we had 12 kids coming between 2 and 5 times a week. I think it was, it might have been around 15, but essentially we were at the break-even line from the first year, which is actually quite good, I think. I'm quite happy if you can start and year one, you're able to break even. And then, yep, it progressed, and every year the number of kids grew. And a beautiful thing about it was a totally different group of kids than our usual kids. We weren't siphoning kids from our normal English kids classes. It was a whole other group that were joining these. And they did progress, and they got so much better. And I found the whole thing to be a lot more satisfying. Right, so that's enough from me. Let's talk to Rebecca. So how long have you had your Gakudo program, Rebecca? You'll need to unmute yourself. You're still muted there, yeah.
Okay, how about that?
There you go.
Okay, sorry about that. We've had it since the year before Corona, and you can call ours basically a failure. The first year was just abysmal. We did research among within our own school, and the reason we started was we felt that we were already being used as a babysitting service. And many people were, dropping their kids off. Well, I have to have them in between. We would go get them at this school where they were doing the, one thing, and then bring them over here. And then we have to take them to another school. Like, what is going on here?
So even before you had a Gakudo, you were picking up kids.
Yeah, we were picking up kids, and because we were smaller then and we could still do it. So, we put out the survey, and, we got pretty good feedback, like 12, like 15, 20 people were interested in it at the time. And then when we actually started it, we found a place. It was kind of far away, but we thought, okay, it's going to work. But it didn't. We only had a few kids. They mostly did come every day. So money-wise, definitely didn't work. The kids who came every day, on the other hand, they did get good at English. I mean, they actually, in this case, mostly they kept their English. Kids we have a lot of returnees in this area. So, not only kept, but actually did really, really, really improved a lot. So yeah, then right before Corona, before Corona even popped its little head out, but we decided that place is not working for us. So we're just going to make it really super small, because we only had a few kids anyway. So we'll just say up to 6. And we took one of our rooms here in the school and used that as a Gakudo.
Right. So I definitely wouldn't call that a failure. I think that the timing of your start obviously poses a certain amount of challenge. But also, I mean, if you've got 6 students full time in a space that accommodates 6 kids, then it's a full program, isn't it?
I guess,
small as it may be. Yeah.
Small as it may be. Yeah. We felt like failures after. What were we thinking? I think location was a problem. Probably location was, I'm not sure what the problem was besides location.
Yeah, well, I mean, the COVID timing isn't great, but the year one, and we'll talking to Dale and Robert as well. Year one, often you won't get as many. It might take a little bit more time. I don't know. What do you think, Robert? Do you think that it takes more time to kind of get the numbers up, or?
Yeah, so like our program, so our first year, we started, we've been in business now for 7 years for it. Our first year, basically, I didn't start off thinking that we would be kind of a Gakudo thing. It was kind of like you. We were having students come once or twice a week, kind of the Eikaiwa style. And what we were wanting to do was wanting to offer more classes in order for the kids to improve. During that time, we went from doing the Jito Aiken. I was introduced to YLE, and I knew that the students coming during that time wasn't going to be able to make it to progress like that. So I had the idea of let's make an after school program where kids can come every day. So I didn't think of it as a Gakudo as actually watching the kids, but more of a 3-hour program where the kids could come every day after school. And then developing that idea, I realized that, especially in where we're at, that was going to be kind of hard. So we was going to have to either we're going to have to rely on the kids that are right close to us, or we was going to have to start picking up kids in different things. And that's when I kind of decided that we would go ahead and add kind of the Gakudo part to it. So we don't call ourselves a Gakudo per se. We call ours an after school program that has Gakudo things inside of it. So we don't try to necessarily sell us as a Gakudo. We try to sell it as an after school program. And because of that, everybody has to sign up for 5 days.
Robert, what was your first year, like when you first opened, how many students joined
at
that point?
We got 1 in our first year.
Okay.
And it's actually a student that changed from the Eikaiwa to that. Later on, inside that year, we got 3. So we ended up, about 6 months later in our first year, we ended up with 3 students. Our second year, we finally, with the word of mouth and the advertising and things, and I finally got. The first year I wasn't able to explain it very well, so I learned how to explain it better. Our second year we got 8, and then just the size of what we were, about 15 was going to be the maximum, and we got that around 2019. And then there was a building next to us that opened up, and when that opened up, of course, it gave us more room, so we were able to accept more students. 2019 we got up to 25. So 2020, we were around 28 students most of the time. And then this last year, because of some of the stuff that we did during the COVID, we didn't really shut down. We stayed open quite a bit, contrary to a lot of the schools and stuff. I think that had a big impact on what we were doing. And this year we're at full capacity with 50 students.
Yeah, 50 full-time students, that's quite a lot of capacity if they're coming every day. One full-time Gakudo student is kind of, if you think about an hour a week English kids, it's kind of like they count as like 20 or more, yeah.
Right.
So for anyone listening, Robert's school is in a rural area. So some people in the comments before this event were asking a little bit about trends in the rural area. I can't speak so much to trends, but he's certainly somebody who's had a Gakudo that's filled to capacity, and he is in a rural area.
Adam, we did have a few questions come up. Would this be an okay time to surface a couple? Or
sure, go ahead. I haven't spoken to Dale yet, but can we maybe, I'm going to talk to Dale a bit about this as well, and then perhaps we can talk about the questions in the transition between stages here. Yeah, Dale, tell us, why did you open a Gakudo, and what was your start like?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna get you back for that picture that you put up for me and add my name to the list of failures that you.
I had to do it. I had to do
it. But no, my Gakudo is very much a work in progress. It's had. When you say how was the first year and how did it go, I believe I'm still in the first year, 4 years after starting it.
Right.
It's gone through a few different forms, and at the moment it's more of a social club form where I want people that already have a fluency in English to come here and to hang out with the adult role being one of a guide on the side and not a sage on the stage, like someone who's just encouraging them and giving them something to do if they don't have it. But as far as when I first opened up the after school segment to bring people from outside, really because of the area we're at, our biggest source of students are our own preschool. So we have a preschool, and once they graduate, they need somewhere to go to retain their English. And so it seems a bit callous to say, right, we've looked after you until you're 6 years old. Now off you trot. We'll see you 45 minutes a week, and don't forget that English. But right. So I was thinking, like, of all the parents that I've spoken to, it's always they don't have a chance to speak English. They don't have a chance to speak English. And then they throw them in an ACHEM program somewhere where they learn stage A, then they learn stage B, then C, then D, and they're not actually focusing on their core fluency or things that they're interested in. So the whole in the market to me, or the whole there was interaction, social interaction, and being bored and trying to connect with the human being next to you. And those are things that you don't get out of the textbook. So that was the reasoning. Yeah. And so it's never had this linear path, but I mean, I think I'm still in my first year, to be honest. We're still reinventing it once every 2 months.
Anybody who's watching and has an English school, which I think is everyone, who feels like they're still getting their feet and still trying to figure it out? Put up your hand there. Yeah, it's a never ending process, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, that's what the good schools look like, right? They have an owner that's always trying to do better. I think some of the things I want to pick up on a couple of the things you mentioned there. So you have an international school. Robert, also you have an international school. So I think, yes?
I know my international school, the preschool came 4 years after the after school program.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah. So,
I didn't know that.
So actually, I'm getting to a place so this is only my third year for the preschool. So
Right.
next, in 2 years, we'll be getting to a point that, or after school, that I'm gonna have to start separating and make a actual.
So it's not strictly fed by students from your preschool. Yeah.
It,
Okay. Same
actually,
as us.
it was all totally outside students, and none
Right.
of them,
Right.
and none of our students. There's no private schools in this area.
Right.
Everything's from public local schools.
Now, Rebecca, you also mentioned to me when we spoke the other day that the new you're thinking of kind of going for it again and opening a new Gakudo, right? And this time, one of your what you're hoping to target is returnees and
Yeah.
international school graduates. Is that right?
Exactly.
Tell us a bit about that.
I think that was one of the problems that my son and I realized that we have is that the kids who come, they're either returnees or international preschool graduates who speak rather well. But as soon as they get in with other kids who, they just want to socialize and play Legos, right? So, that's what happens. They're just going to do it in the Japanese language because that's what everybody can do. So we feel like we really need to separate them. So I'm kind of interested in how other people do that too.
Yeah, that's interesting. For our case is a little bit different. We do have a small preschool. It's not kind of as fully developed as what Dale has or Robert has. It does somewhat feed our Gakudo, but we really have a mix of returnees, international school grads, kids who've come in with zero English, and we have found ways to make it work. But it certainly is not without its challenges. There are ways that you need to kind of make sure that yeah, I mean, for us, one of the things is keeping it in a sort of a principled, no Japanese kind of environment, so that they don't immediately switch to what's easier to use. But there's more we can say about that. Perhaps we can leave that to later. Does anyone have any questions about starting up, and not so much on the financial side of things, but sort of the challenges of getting started?
Adam, one thing I would like to say is one reason that I was able to grow the way that I was we started kind of organic with Ichi Nensei, the first graders. And every year, so we go all the way to 6th grade. So as the students so this year will be the first year that an actual class will be graduating. And actually we're into a position now that we only have to field the graduation class. So last year I did try to do a Setsumeikai in the next town over to look to expand. And because our program's a 5-day program, when I went over there, everybody was wanting, well, we're already doing this, we're already doing this. We only want to come twice a week, we only come 3 times a week or something like that. And I still feel that's kind of an Eikaiwa style way of doing it. So I really believe that if you can look at opening up your school from a grassroots type of thing and look at maybe your first year, not targeting necessarily everyone, but the first grade, the beginning first grade, and then build your school. We also have a lot of families. So we have like a 5th grader, a 5th grade student, and a little sister or little brothers in 2nd grade. And that helps, that's helped with numbers a lot too.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, just, we've already kind of mentioned this, but you started with less students in your first year than maybe Rebecca did even. Would that be right? Yeah.
I probably had 2 or 3.
okay, around the same.
Look at you bragging over there, huh?
yeah, it can be a slower start for sure. Okay, we'll probably talk about this in program structure, but the number of days a week that you allow also will very much affect the number of students you have. We started off with a minimum of 2 days a week, and lo and behold, nearly all of the students that joined came 2 times a week. That's kind of the minimum that you set is where the bulk of your customers are probably going to come. So if you set the bar high at 5 days a week minimum, chances are you're going to have probably a slower start, but then again, I mean, I think that there's a lot of good arguments for keeping it more full-time. Dale, is yours, is it 5 days a week?
At the moment, well, it was 3 days a week, and then at another stage it was 2, and then 3 again, and then it's been all over the place. And in its current form, we're starting with 1 day a week, because we're trying to reinvent it into that kind of social club atmosphere. And the person that we've got on board to do it is available at the moment for 1 or 2 days a week. So we've started with 1 day, try and get that right, get a system going, and then we're going to spread it out. I mean, we've come across many people that have around here, they do like Soroban on this day, they do this on another day. And even some of our most dedicated students have been taken away by things like softball or something where they just can't find the time. So I was just mentally playing around with the idea of having a 5-day Gakudo, and I don't think I've ever come across a student that would be able to attend 5 days in a week.
Robert's got a nice, yours is 5 days a week, but you've kind of got around the Narai Goto competition in a particular kind of way, right?
So what we do is our program is 5 days a week. So there's no other options. It's a 5-day program. But within that, so I kind of look at it at kind of, it's 5 days a week, and they give there's a schedule of all the classes and everything, all the different classes and stuff that we do. And it's up to the parents on, so that it's not mandatory, of course, for them to come 5 days a week. So if they want to come 4 days, if they want to come 2 days, they want to come 1 day, that's up to the parents, that's up to them. They're not actually paying for the English class specifically, they're paying for the spot, if you will. And that spot's allowed to them for 5 days a week. I kind of look at it like kind of go, I know it's maybe not the best example, but kind of like going to the gym, right? So I pay a certain amount of money to be a member of the gym. And then as being a member of the gym, you know, if I go once a month, if I go every day that month, I'm, you know, my price doesn't really change anything like that. So actually they're kind of paying for a position or to be a member of our school is kind of how I look at it.
Rebecca, you've got sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that's why we say it's a 5-day week program. We do have some students who only come 4 days. We have, and then what that it does allow is sometimes the students do have other things that they want to go do. We've had some students who go swimming or something like that, but then that day that swimming school might be closed or whatever the other thing that they normally do on that day is closed. They're still allowed to come during that day. So maybe normally a student's going on Wednesday, but that Wednesday, whatever activity he or she does is not available that day, they're still allowed to come on Wednesday to our school. So it gives that parent the flexibility still of being able to come every day.
Nice idea.
Can I jump in with a question real quick?
Sure.
Scott Porterfield here. I came a little bit late, so I'm sorry if I missed any details, but in regards to studying English, I've had 2 students join the Gakudo where I'm at, and the owner has tried to shuffle them into current English classes. And I guess this is a problem with Eikaiwa in general, but the kids are really motivated, but they have no experience while their classmates have already been studying for a year. So they know most of the phonics, they know a lot of vocabulary. So a student that chooses to only go 2 out of the 5 days, what problems do you see as far as them falling behind the other students in their progress, the ones that can attend all 5 days?
Right. Yeah. They definitely, the number of days a week that they come is going to have a pretty strong bearing on the pace of their progress for sure. Well, at our school, we've kind of managed that in a couple ways. In the early days, we had Gakudo kids just together, and in year 1, it wasn't a problem because they were all just starting. But as we expanded over the years and the levels started to diversify more, we really ran into that problem where we had 2 levels within Gakudo, and then we had 3 levels where some were, you know, near fluent and some were 0. So there was 2 main things that we did to kind of deal with that. One of them is that, well, we actually have kind of a bigger school with lots of different classes. So we're able to we've combined them with our regular 45-minute classes. So kids will kind of, you know, if they're just starting, they'll join a phonics class, and then they'll do a lower level communication class or something like that. The other thing that's really helped us is having more holistic type curriculum. Phonics is something that you can't really avoid. Reading is going to be something that, well, actually, hold on a second. Yeah, most of our courses are kind of more content based, where they might not it's not a language syllabus where it's if you don't know point A, then you can't move on to point B. So that's one thing. We do a lot of CLIL and story-based learning, things like that.
Okay.
But certainly the variety of classes, as well as having a bit of more holistic type curriculum, help. Yes, Dale.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in kind of on the thread of what you were saying. Like with our Gakudo, we're coming from preschool was first. So a nursery and a early childhood education center was where that's where my heart lies. And that's where what the school is geared towards. But and the way that we do it, all the classes are mixed together. We talk about something called an enabling environment. So what you do is you create an environment where the children can go off in their individual groups, or they can do things and learn within the environment, and then the adults in the room are there to support them. So what you have is you'll have pockets of learning that will be relevant to the children. So I have the opposite problem where our school isn't geared for that kind of what's it called, issei hoiku, the
Everyone
teacher,
together.
yeah, like the
I
teacher at the top instructing the children. So we have to try to find ways of putting things in the classroom that will elicit someone to learn phonics, because you do need to do rote learning for phonics and math. But otherwise they can find a group that they fit in, and they can kind of move up the groups of however they see it. If they see this group of children as being too intimidating, then maybe they'll start with some children that they can connect with easier, and they'll naturally level themselves up within that environment. And then the teachers are just there to move around and take advantage of any teaching opportunities that come up. That's one way of approaching it, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, having a more kind of flexible, free-flowing type of environment rather than classes can solve that a bit. The other thing that I would just throw on that is that since we've done Gakudo, the overall level of our school has raised quite a bit, in that having the stronger students with weaker students, and the weaker students just seeing, oh, wow, they can just walk up to someone and talk. They feel like that's normal. And the environment at our school is kind of one of that it's normal to speak English, and that's the culture, that's the norm. So the Gakudo like definitely has a strong influence on the culture, I think.
Well, peer-to-peer learning there, I mean, children learn far more and far faster from their peers than they do from the person that we want them to model.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's really interesting to track expressions that go through, like that popularize. We had one kid that started saying, no, thank you, whenever other kids were mean to him or whatever. And then for years at our school, kids would be fighting with no, thank you, no, thank you. It's the cutest thing. You know, kids in grade 5 and 6, right? No, thank you. That's funny. Anyways, we've kind of spilled into the other topics of program structure and curriculum and content. So can I put a little pause there, and maybe we can get a couple questions out, and then maybe we'll jump into those other topics, because I think we'll probably go over these things again through that.
I've got a question ready for you if you'd like one.
Go for it.
Okay, this question is from Jared, and he basically asked, how far do students come from, and do they need to get picked up, or do parents bring them?
Okay, transportation. Yeah. That is something that's towards the end that we probably wouldn't have got to. So let's jump the queue with that one and talk about it a bit. I'll start off. Our school does not have any transportation offered. We're right next to a station, and we're quite close to 3 big elementary schools. So most kids do come on foot or by train, and they're picked up by their parents afterwards. And that's been okay for us. But I think at least, yeah. Rebecca, Robert, Dale, how's the transportation situation with you guys?
Transportation for us is super tricky. Another reason why we're thinking about not doing it so much. We don't have enough people to go get kids. A lot of the parents want us to go pick them up. And because we're in central Tokyo, we are, we're not that far away, but we've got 3 or 4 different places we have kids to go pick up. It's really tricky. The teachers leave them, the class doesn't get out on time. It's just a horrendous mess. That's what I can say about picking things up. I also think that we're not actually that far from the school, and kids should be able to walk. But I think just because of where we are, a lot of parents are not from Tokyo. So they're scared of the big city of Tokyo, you know, and so they want their kids to be, you know, taken by hand. We have
Right.
people hold their hands, like, oh, okay. So yeah, it's a tricky, I think.
We have a lot of kids that join halfway through grade 1. They'll come for a demo and then say, okay, we want to join, but we're not so sure that, you know, our precious little, you know, was just a Yochien last year can come on their own. So they'll join halfway through the year when they kind of parents loosen up a little bit. Robert, go for it.
Well, our first year, I started off with a no pickup policy. And we looked around and they had this thing called a Family Support Center in this area, which is done by the government where parents could call and they could try to get kids picked up and different things like that. One problem with that was the Family Support Center was telling the parents that they couldn't promise that they would have a driver for them every time. So what I ended up doing is we leased a Nissan Caravan, and we do have a pickup route that we do. We go to 6 schools. Of course, the one school that's close to us, that's the majority of our students, but they walk here. They come in their walking groups straight here, first grade, second grade, and so on and so on. What we've noticed is the schools around here they do get out at different times, but for some reason it's worked out for us that the farther away schools actually get out earlier than the closer schools. So we actually start at the outside of where we can pick up. And then of course we are kind of rural. So I've learned all the back roads and how to get around, and we have, but one thing that we do talk to parents about is that we are a pickup service for them. We're there to support the kids, but it's their responsibility to contact the school. We don't talk to teachers. We're there to pick up. There is a lot of different services around here that pick up students for other reasons. So we haven't had any problems like that. We did a lot of research as far as what to call it, and basically you don't want to. From what I understand, we don't call it a pickup service. It's just a price. We try to put the price inside there and say that we have pickups that's possible.
You can get in trouble with the taxi companies if you charge for I think Dale, you mentioned that earlier this week.
Yeah. I mean, we do tentatively have a fee for our nursery school, but we know that we can get told not to do that at any time. It's just laws that protect taxi services. The same reason why Uber isn't available here.
What's important is what you call it. If you call it a pick, like for our preschool, we put it inside of our askari, the extra time and stuff like that. So that's a service inside our askari. So it's not that they're actually paying more money for the pickup. They're paying for the time to be with a teacher, like for us to watch them. It just so happens we're watching them in our car on the way to school.
We put it as maintenance for the bus. We have a bus diet, and so maintenance for the bus. We don't have them pay for transportation,
right?
Which I think is the thing. But if there's one thing that comes up when it comes to transportation, like we got a NG bus, a school bus designed for children, and anyone that's thinking about doing that, don't just get a regular transportation bus. I was all starry-eyed and wanted the little cute mini bus, and you realize you're limiting yourself. But we do a little bit of pickup where it's necessary.
Our caravan, so we put car seats inside our caravan for the smaller kids. So car seats weren't very expensive. So when we do for the preschool, we put the car seats in, and then when they're done, we take those out. Just sometimes we have to do like for the preschool and after school, we have to be careful of making sure that they don't go anywhere when we need the van. But for the most part, I think we pick up a good about 15 students. So the little bit of money that is charged kind of for the pickup and stuff like that, it well pays for the van and the insurance and the gasoline for us.
I just want to wrap up that topic a little bit, Jared. So the one thing that I can say with certainty is that if you're going to do some kind of transportation, according to the consultant I spoke to this week, that's one of the, if you're a private Gakudo, that's one of the things that is regulated, and you would need to report it to the Unei Kyoku, the Transportation Bureau. And also the regulations are different in every area in Japan. This is something that's governed by probably the Jichitai, the local government. So, you know, whatever we say, we could be steering you a bit wrong. So please do your own research on that for sure. Okay, we're already coming up at 10 to the next hour. I'd like to talk a little bit about program structure because I think that that's kind of a useful thing to talk about. And I'll start it off with a quick little slide that kind of shows what the structure is like at our school, and then I'll talk to everyone else about that as well. Just a second here. Share that, and oh, it's fine like this. All right, here we go. Structure, okay. So this is our school's schedule. So most students, the younger kids, are going to tend to come at around 2:30 when they finish school earlier in grade 1 and 2. They'll have some time to do their homework and a bit of free time to talk together, read books, play with toys, do sort of more free activities. From 3 to 4 or 3:45, they'll have a basic class. So some of these kids are going to be the new kids that haven't studied English before. So we'll take them through basics. We might do something that's a little bit more kind of Yochien-ish, where we'll go through months, days, and that kind of like a basic English class. After that, snack time. The kids at our Gakudo bring their own snacks. They'll bring a stash of them, which we keep for them. Although if they forget their snacks, we can also provide them a wrapped kind of packaged snack. And then from 4 o'clock is typically when the older students, grade 3 and above, start to show up. At that time, we have a range of different classes on our schedule, and they can we can mix and match them depending on what they're doing on different days, or perhaps what their parents want or their interests. So, you know, for the younger kids, grade 1 and 2, we'll typically have a communication class or a phonics class. 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, it will be something like communication or reading, writing, or a grammar class. So they're all kind of distinct little courses that we have. From 5 to 5:45, we're running CLIL classes for different levels. We've got 3 different levels of CLIL. And in these classes, our kids are doing, I think this week, some of the kids were doing first aid, learning what to do in case of an emergency, playing out scenarios where one of their friends gets injured, that sort of thing. Older kids were looking at nutrition and planning menus, reading nutritional ingredients on goods and that sort of thing. And then towards the end, so usually the grade 1 and 2 kids are either they're just hanging out in the Gakudo area until 7 when their parents kick them out. And then again, just playing, using Gamerized Dictionary, our app, or looking at books, that sort of thing. At the same time, the older kids tend to take a more test prep type class. Well, there are also kind of more grammar type classes as well, but some of them will be studying Cambridge YLE or Aiken or whatever they're kind of aiming for. So that's kind of like a day at our school. That's our structure. So it is also one thing to note here is that there's 15 minutes between all of the classes. So in those 15 minutes, the bell rings. The kids, again, will just sort of play with things, talk together, use Gamerized Dictionary, or yeah, I mean, basically anything. Sometimes they come to the counter and just chat to the teachers and stuff like that. But that's a little bit of kind of free time, which we have kind of built into the schedule. How about you guys? Let's see. Robert, what's a day at your school look like?
Okay, so this is a day for if they're going to school, like a normal school day. Because if they're not going to school, they come at 8 o'clock, so it's a little bit of a different schedule. But for the most part, we go till 7 o'clock in the evening. So the function part, the actual class schedule and everything starts at 4 o'clock. So we have a 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock class. Most of the students are coming. So the first grade, second grade, third and fourth grade usually come earlier. So all their classes, all their English classes, everything are usually 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock. And then we do homework / YLE time at 6 o'clock. That's because that's usually done by the program tanto, the program leader, who's Japanese. So they'll support them in their homework. We support homework. That's when I'm saying homework, I'm talking about the school homework from the Japanese school. We support them, things like ondoku, their reading and stuff like that. For the older kids, homework time's usually at the 4 o'clock slot, and then 5 and 6 o'clock are their English classes. That's just because usually 4th, 5th, and 6th graders are coming between 4 and 4:30, depending on the day. Like some of the classes, not to go into too much detail, but the schedule is based on different types of classes. So we have 2 different type of communication classes. One communication class is a book-based, it's kind of your Eikaiwa style class that you would traditionally think of. And then the second class is another communication class that's more open, kind of doing the why questions, your WH questions, kind of helping them with the speaking part of like the YLE, that type of idea. Another class
about that in the content section. So
okay, yeah, so the basic schedule is 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, those 3 hours, and then inside those 3 hours, they'll have the different type of classes and things like that. Snack time is usually we do snacks. We do snacks every day, and usually we do snacks right before around 5 o'clock. Because that way we know all the students who are going to be there at that time. The parents pay a little bit extra for snacks, and what we do is we do the same thing, kind of like what you're talking about, the packaged snacks. We do give, because of the preschool and stuff, we can do like onigiris and different things like that. If a student does have an allergy, we don't charge the parents for snack, and we just ask the parent to bring, a week worth or 2 weeks worth of snacks that we put up. That we haven't really had a problem with that. We've only had maybe 1 or 2 students with that kind of problem.
Homework came up. I think homework is a bit of something that if you haven't opened a Gakudo, you might not think about until it comes up. But if so, at our place, we will make sure that they do their homework, but we do not guarantee, we don't offer any help with the homework or anything like that, because that can get you into a little bit of trouble. Where the parents are really kind of watching everything, and they really want you to kind of make sure their homework is done perfectly or whatever. So we just sort of we check that they're doing it, and that's it. How about you, Robert? Do they help a lot with homework?
We will try to we same as you. We don't guarantee we give the kids the time to do it, and the teacher will go around and kind of encourage the kids to do it.
Yeah.
Only if we have a specific request from a parent. Hey, I don't know, this child's having a really hard time right now. Would you mind helping us out a little bit? Then we might do a little bit there. But for the most part, the kids help each other with their Japanese homework anyway. So
Right.
So there's not a whole lot that we have to do with that.
Right. Okay. Rebecca, give us a day in the life at Redgate Gakudo.
Well, a lot of them are younger, so they come in some between 1 and 3 usually. And it's basically, they're really well trained to just sit down, do their homework right away. I do have somebody who can help them. A lot of our kids who come are returnees, so a lot of times their Japanese isn't very good. And by the way, we call it a bilingual Gakudo, because that was important to me and my son, to know that there's nothing wrong with Japanese. We love Japanese. You can do it, kind of feeling. And so we have some college students might be there helping out at the Gakudo, so they can help with things like that. After that, they often go to the park just for 30 minutes. It's been really hot, so maybe not. They love that part. They come back, have a snack. I think whoever's in charge of the Gakudo always has them doing certain things that we say in English before they go. There's rules that they have to say. There's questions. You ask them questions they have to answer before they get a snack. It's kind of fun. He usually has a really good time with that. But really, there's not a lot of English. I mean, he speaks English. He or she speaks English to the kids. But we don't really have classes per se. Sometimes I'm really interested to know, do all of your kids have classes every day? Because ours don't. Sometimes they have a class and sometimes they just hear it for the Gakudo in English.
Right.
So,
I think what you do is a little bit more similar to Dale in that he doesn't do the kind of class thing either. And it's something, yeah, let's talk a bit more about that because I think that's important. And I'm a bit jealous because I want to have more of that kind of structure sometimes as well.
yeah.
But yeah, so Dale, you also don't have kind of like a schedule of classes, right?
Yeah, I mean, the real reasoning behind it is you can go get Eikaiwa style lessons anywhere, and one thing that's kind of difficult to recreate is a social environment. So it's about having somewhere that the children understand why they're doing it. They're doing it for the time itself. So if you're spending 3 hours in a space, you're speaking English not because you're going to get a test or it's this or you're going to be praised, but because you're connecting to this human being that's across from you in the space that you got to spend 3 hours in. So they actually have ownership of them improving because they want to interact. And we have no Japanese in our any of our activities apart from Saturdays. So our Saturday school is a bit like the Gakudo that I'm hearing, except it's more hippie like. Yeah, we develop a culture of no Japanese in there. So if a child starts speaking Japanese, the other kids are going to go, what's going on? This is an English space. And so we don't have teachers going, no Japanese, no Japanese. But as far as class structure goes, it's whatever comes up. So the adults in the room have freedom to be able to follow any thread of interest. So there may be a science class or an outing somewhere or something, but you don't know until it happens. It will literally be the seed of an idea comes from a child, and then the teacher thinks, how can I follow that up? Can I drive to the 100 yen shop to get supplies for this thing with the kids? And so it can be a tiny thing like, let's get a card game out or a board game out or a book on the subject you're talking about, or it could be a huge outing like going and shopping and buying something. I don't know, what comes to mind is making Play-Doh. So, you can make Play-Doh with flour and water and all that. And they go, yeah, here's the recipe. Should we go buy some? And they quickly get permission and then jump on the bus and go out with the kids. So there's no, between this hour and this hour is this class, but there are classes. It's in the moment. It's just when it comes up.
Yeah, very cool. I love that. What did you call that again? Plan in the moment, or?
Yeah, it's based on there's a method in the UK called in the moment planning or planning in the moment, and that's what our nursery and preschool is based on. And so I'm a firm believer in taking that to every part of childhood development. That you need adults to use the sparks that the children generate and follow those up, because the children will do it for you. You don't need to have all the responsibility of what they're going to learn.
Yeah, I love it.
Adam, can I bring up a question here?
Sure.
Rebecca had surfaced the idea of actually naming Gakudo bilingual Gakudo. We do have a question about naming Gakudos that I thought was a great question here that I'd like to read from Tomomi. And Ryan was also interested in this question too. She's wondering about the parents being concerned with the name Gakudo. So if it's named Gakudo, does that kind of attract just people that want aftercare?
Can I throw a comment on that before I open it up to everyone else? Yeah, the word Gakudo, we've thought about changing ours a few times as well, because people do associate Gakudo with being something that's very cheap, first of all, and second of all, just being a place like a home away from home. You finish, you're at school and you go and you're just there. And yeah, I mean, it's literally just, it's hoiku, right? It's just watching the kids. So if you do call it Gakudo, there is the risk that people are going to think, well, that's quite expensive for, you know, just watching our kids. We could just go to the school and we could get this for 3,000 yen a month. On the other hand, it hasn't affected us negatively. And I think that there's quite a lot of search for that. So if you're thinking about it from a digital marketing perspective, people might, you know, the name preschool has become something that people search for, and it means English preschool, right? But there isn't really so much of a space for the English Gakudo thing yet. So I think the term Gakudo for now has worked for us. Anyways, yeah. Anyone else thoughts?
Yeah.
Actually,
Oh, go on.
I'm sorry. Actually, we don't really say Gakudo. We just call ours is an after-school program, and that we have like inside when we explain to parents, we do use the word Gakudo, but it's not on we use it inside explaining the program, as in like we're like a Gakudo in the idea that we watch your children, but we actually call it an after-school program. So in our advertising and things like that, you won't see Gakudo.
Yeah, we add the tags for it to aid in searching and everything, and we'll sprinkle it in there just to relate to the parents. But we call it at the moment a social club, English social club, and before that after school program.
I did notice that Phil has his hand up as well if we're looking for another question.
A little bit of a camera adjustment going on.
There you go.
There you go. Yes, hi. This question is for Dale. This question is for Dale Berry. So my question is, when you said on the spot lessons, how many kids do you have in the class? Because I would assume if you have rather larger group, it would be kind of, not as easy as, pick up and go shopping, right? So how does it work out?
Well, we always keep a ratio of 6-to-1. The maximum number of children that an adult will be looking after is 6. And that is one of the reasons why we're so poor, is because we use this style, and it's the only, I know you get results from the classical way of teaching. You do definitely get results, but it's something that I really want to see through. And yeah, one of the things you have to do is you have to think, how many children can you realistically manage? And so it will be between 4-to-1 and 6-to-1, depending on the ages, the type of children. If we have more older children, we might push it to 8. But at the moment, we see 6 as a kind of magic number where you can have 6 children yourself and manage. Whereas if you had a class of 12 or 15 children, it would just be impossible from a safety standpoint, at the very least. But yeah, we manage a 6-to-1 ratio, and I've taught this style all for years and years when I was working at other schools, and I've done it with a class of 12 children. We go to the shop, we just have another person with me, and that ends up being about a 6-to-1 ratio. Most of these children are well trained in moving around, and if you've got good classroom management or people management, you can make it work. But then you've just got to look at what's in front of you. What are you doing? Are you walking to the park? Are you going to the shop? The example was going to the shop, but it could just be you're talking about butterflies, and you know that there are butterflies in the piece of land behind your school. Actually taking them there, rather than just saying, oh, they're around here somewhere. Actually taking them there and seeing if you can get some kind of chain going from the idea to then some practical thing that they'll actually remember. And they'll remember that, 1, it was a good idea to ask something, and 2, it will just solidify it in that part of your memory of something you had control over.
Love it.
We do something not quite the level you do, but during during the times, so the time when I said that this was a day with them going to school and stuff like that, we kind of take that approach a little bit more during the summertime, during the winter breaks, and during the school time, because they're with us from 8 o'clock to, if there's no school that day, they're with us from 8 o'clock to 7 o'clock. But we go ahead and start the regular program at 4 o'clock every day, even though there's summer and different holidays. But we still have to fill in, so we have all this extra time to fill in, and that's not quite to the level of what you're talking about, but that kind of that concept of giving them. So, for example, we're talking where I'm in Izumo City. So Izumo, we're famous for the local. It's like the second oldest shrine in Japan. So what we did was we studied about the shrine and things like that. We went to the shrine. We took the actual tour in English of the shrine. The kids come up with their own presentation of the shrine and things like that. So like what you're, again, it's not as fully developed as maybe what you're doing, but we still, we see that as that time kind of not every day, but more of the extra free time that gives the kids a chance to be able to do those type of things.
Can I ask, so this is nice, we're getting right into the crux of more of like the curriculum and content. What do you do during the time, which is something I definitely wanted to get into. Rebecca as well, so you were saying that your kids are not really in class so much, and it's more of a free-flowing kind of experience as well. Having spoken to you before, I know that you also have a situation where you've got stations set out and they can do different things. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, well, that's within my class. Is that okay?
Sure.
Well, it's really, yeah, because it does, yeah, it's very different than what you do, because I don't have to, because I have stations, I don't have to make sure that this really high level reader is in a high level reading class. I can just put this person in a station, and she will work with a teacher and maybe two teachers at one point, and then she'll go on work on her own and kind of move around my classroom. I have different places to be. They can go read by themselves over there. So that way I don't have to differentiate within classes. So basically I think the people in this area really like that it's very flexible. And so I also do have little classes where I only have, certain kind of high level kid can do this kind of thing, kind of class. I have a few of those, but for the most part, it's a station setup. So down in the Gakudo, yeah, I guess they're kind of all doing their own thing. And there's usually another teacher there who's kind of interacting with them in English. So there's a lot of interaction because we are also very small, 6 kids. There is a lot of, teacher student interaction, but yeah. I don't know.
Nice. Yeah. So there's a bit of choice and autonomy and freedom, and they can kind of choose different things that they're doing.
They can do, and we do have a lot of that. Oh, like I'll have a teacher who's really good at drawing, and hey, everybody, let's draw a picture like Picasso kind of thing happening, which I don't really tell them what to do. I tried, by the way, this is another failure. I tried to tell them what to do. Here's a curriculum. Here, try this. Let's do this and this and this, and it complete failure. My teachers were never able to. I'm not sure they wanted to, but also they were not unable to actually follow through with that curriculum. So I kind of am leaving it up to whatever they think is best in that moment with their own, whatever they're very good at and whatever children they have. And it sort of works, I guess.
I think it does. I think that a lot of us have this kind of more goal-oriented way of thinking about education, in that, like, if you do a lesson and at the end you can't say, oh, they were able to complete this, they can do this now, or we've achieved this aim or whatever. It's harder for us to sometimes feel satisfied that they've gotten something out of that time. And when you have this kind of more open planning in the moment sort of structure, there is that kind of worry, but I don't think it's a merited worry. I think the kids are learning in different ways, and in some ways much deeper than they would in a structured class.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on something you said there when you said about learning stations, like learning centers or learning stations. It was the starting point for this. This is just like the the far version of that. So if anyone's interested in that kind of child-led or child-initiated approach, you can start by just looking up learning centers and learning stations. And then, so we still do it we call it invitations to play, where you'll have maybe 3 things set up in the room, but then which of those 3 things the children do is up to them.
Right.
And they may decide to do something completely different. But so when we had an empty school, the way I did it was I made sure that there were 4 stations out, and one of them would be math-based, game-based, language-based, and I'd cycle through like science things. And then the progression was then, well, why don't we have the whole thing be centers?
Yeah.
And that's where we are now. But if you were thinking it's a bit too daunting, then you could, the learning center approach really works, and it's really good, and it's effective in many schools. But I just wanted to take it that bit further, and that's completely up to you. And it's something I find hard to actually get other teachers to do, because of playtime Pavlovian responses that they have. At playtime, you become a lighthouse and look around. And so it's really hard. When you may be able to do it, but maybe the teachers that you employ can't. But a learning center is really easy way of doing it, and it works. It really works.
We use that at our preschool as well. That's definitely something that I love, giving them the choice and that sort of thing. If I can kind of do a little, so we're kind of still on the topic of more of the curriculum and stuff. I want to kind of run through a few ideas, and then I'm just to vary things a little bit, I want to show a bit of video, a little bit of what some of the things that we do in our class, or things that I'm experimenting with. But I think some of the things we're talking about here, if you've got kids for a longer period of time and you're not just doing a tight kind of 1-hour class, variety is going to be extremely important, especially if they're coming, 5 times a week. You can't be doing that same language lesson every time without kind of having diminishing returns. Autonomy is important, giving the kids a certain, I think Rebecca and Dale both have a very high autonomy approach, where the learners have a lot of choice and they feel like they're kind of free within the program. Holism is something I mentioned before, and Dale and I have spoken about before, not sort of looking at learning as being this atomistic point by point sort of thing, but giving learners a whole experience. And in terms of language, really not it can also be not having a grammar syllabus or step 1, step 2, step 3, but just sort of giving them a lot of meaningful and input that's going to engage them and get them going. These are things that work, I think, in an environment where you have more time with children. Resources is something I want to pick up a bit as well, but projects is something that we can talk about. Project-based learning works really well in a Gakudo context. Yeah, those are the main things that I want to say there. Would anyone mind if I share just a quick 2-minute video that shows a smattering of the kind of classes that we do at our school?
Please.
I got a thumbs up from Jay there. There's a bunch of, most of these are actually from before our Gakudo got big. These are a lot of our CLIL classes on Saturday. There's a little bit of test prep, and then there's, some sort of Gakudo break time, but this will just give you an idea of what some of our classes look like. They're a bit materials light in terms of CLIL, but have a look.
Anyone? Go to Iowa, go right, and go on the right.
I will be in the near.
And mine this way. Please. My here. There's no place. Mine this way. This way. Okay.
So that last bit there is kind of break time. So this is a little bit more of that kind of free flowing time. We've got computers, we've got certain games that are a little bit more collaborative in nature. Those 2 girls, I think, were in grade 1 at the time. And you can hear that they're just communicating fully in English, albeit highly inaccurate English, but they're using English to kind of talk while they're playing the game.
Come.
What?
No.
A programming lesson.
I will play soccer.
Okay.
Perfect. When? When?
Must take a future.
And that was just a little bit of Aiken there. That's quite the way we do it now. We use Gamerized Dictionary and we mix a lot of levels, so the groups are not quite as small, but we do have a little bit of that in there. All toppings?
All toppings. You got cheese, olive, tomato. Okay.
Excuse me.
This is not what I ordered. I ordered a lot of cheese pizza.
So that last one there, it may look like just a restaurant role play, but that was a whole project where we created a kitchen and they had to take orders. We had timers for fake ovens, and then they had to serve customers and all that kind of thing. So basically they played a restaurant. It was a lesson on time management and planning. They planned together how they were going to execute, who was what role, what was the fastest way to get the food out? Is it take all the orders first and go back in, or do them one by one? And then afterwards evaluate the whole restaurant experience. So there's a lot of thought and as you can see, quite a bit of engagement in that CLIL lesson. And here's the last
3, 2, 1, okay. So I think it's.
I think it's.
I think they're first this time. Go. Because it was first, and now this time they're first. So what I think.
I think
It's a crime.
It's a crime.
Oh, why?
No, I mean, how do you say this?
Suicide.
If this boy is suicide, so this boy that sad.
Zaminon, 4 please. Not Zaminon, Zaminon 2 was the case.
Police let them spider.
Why?
Spider killer.
Spider, why?
Spider is the killer.
Why?
Because the ghost takes the spider web.
Oh, I see.
There you go. So that's just a few examples of the kinds of things that we do in our when we have a bit more time to kind of run classes. And
Adam, we have some general questions too, if that might.
Go for it. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Great. I want to go back to Malcolm's question. He's asking about the extended hours that folks offer during spring, summer, winter, and school holidays, if any.
So
Yes, I'll let somebody else, Dale or Robert, or yeah, Robert, you look like you're ready to go.
so what we do, in the summertime, we do summer camps, local summer camps, and those are that's not inside the program that we offer them. It's an additional cost, so it's kind of an upsell for us. But we this local area, there's a lot of like prefectural run training places. I don't know the actual name of them, but you can go there. It's very cheap for as far as like a lot of soccer, like there are facilities where you can stay and they have food. So we usually do camps at those type of places. They go for a whole week. The morning time would be English classes. The afternoon would be some kind of activity at the camp. For example, this past summer, we went to a mountain that's close by. We stayed up in the mountain. Morning times, they had English classes. In the afternoon, they did different activities. On the last day, they climbed the mountain. We also do a winter camp where we go to another mountain that's on the other side of us, and we go skiing and things like that. So we offer other things, not to mention now that this past summer, we actually started offering overseas programs and overseas camps and stuff like that. So the idea, when they're first and second grade, the idea to come to like a local camp or something like that. A lot of times it's the parents who are worried more than the children, kind of separate from their parents and stuff like that, give them those experiences. And then as they move over and things like that, hopefully we can get them to where they challenge themselves to go overseas. Some other things that we do, I found that just recently we found this wonderful thing called Gamerize that's been a lifesaver for us that helps a lot within the time, you know, those times and things like that. Students come in, you know, it's something that they'll actually, most of the time they work by themselves, but sometimes I don't know what it is, but students like some kids like watching other kids do games. I don't know what that, I grew up at a weird different time than that. I don't quite understand that.
It's that whole YouTube generation of like watching people play video games, right?
I guess that's what it is, but sometimes we have that. We actually do things like inside our year calendar. We do have an undokai that we do. Actually, it was supposed to be today. It was unfortunately canceled because of the typhoon that's coming through. But in December, we do a hapiokai, a Christmas hapiokai, where actually we go to the city theater and actually do a full Christmas production, winter production type of thing that the students look forward to. We do testing. We do the Wiley in November. So all that kind of stuff so we try to do all that stuff inside the year. That way the kids are continuously looking forward to different things and whatnot. So it's kind of based a little more on the traditional school calendar, if you will, but my different topic. But another thing, it gets the parents involved with the kids learning and the parents involved with each other too. I don't know if that answers hopefully I answered the question.
Yeah, we actually don't do a lot on the holidays. We do often in the summer do a summer school, and the Gakudo kids might come in and do summer school in the morning and then stay for Gakudo after that. But other than that, we're not really big on the events and that sort of thing. Yeah. Dale?
Yeah, I mean, we do a summer school. We do two, although since COVID happened, we kind of toned it down a bit, but we have a preschool summer school, which basically anyone of preschool age that maybe the Yorchin's not on or something, they could attend. And we have one that's open to all ages. That's usually a week or 2 weeks long, where we just have basically we have the teachers take over for a day. So this is one teacher's day, and they can make it art-based, exercise-based. We've done camping days at River, but they put their idea of a day out, and then the students vote for it. So whoever wants to go to the days, they sign up for it, and then we do that. But we'd like to expand more during the time off, but it's the only time we get off and the only time we get to renovate and do different things. But yeah, I'd love the idea of doing more events and obviously taking care of children that need it during the holiday time, because a lot of them they have nothing to do.
See, that's sorry to jump in, but I think that's one reason that we're able to keep the 5 days is like that, was because we stay open during the summer. And that's one thing that we can provide to the parents, is for them to come every day during that week. So the goal is, so even during COVID and things, we stayed open, where all the elementary schools were shutting down and everything like that. We stayed open, and basically what we said to the parents is, you know, we know about COVID, we understand the worries of COVID and everything like that. We are open, please make your own choice whether to come or not. And then we just left it open like that. And I think we were about 85% full most of the time, because the parents, a lot of our parents are doctors, or they have clinics or different types of things, that if they're home because they have to take care of their kid, or if or their child or something like that, it really affects their work or their business or different things like that. So being open in the summer 5 days a week, it gives advantage to the parents. That also gives us an advantage to do more kind of outside the box type of activities and different things like that too.
With the looking at the time there a little bit, Wayne, what's the vibe in the chat there? Is there a certain kind of direction that we should be going in? Should we be looking more at the subsidies and stuff like that? keep going on?
I'm just seeing general questions in most part about like schedules and
Fees. I'm seeing fees a bunch of time here.
a lot of fees, a lot of pricing questions. Yep.
Okay, well, let me kind of go through a little section that I've kind of planned on that. And hopefully if we get through that quickly, we can kind of get back a bit more to the content of the courses and that sort of thing. Would that be all right with everyone? Yep. Okay, great. Let's do that then. Okie dokie. All righty, let's just do it. Okay, so I've done some research and also spoken to some consultants this week to make sure I don't give you terrible information. I promised that I would plug the consulting firm. So if you do have any questions on this sort of thing and you want a bit of help with something like, you know, negotiating regulations or getting subsidies, please do check out Funai Soken. They were kind enough and they've given us quite a lot of time and answered questions even in the early morning, so they were quite helpful in this. So brought to you by Funai Soken. All right, here we go. So first little thing to look at here are the types of Gakudo. So everyone that's talking here today on the panel would fall into the category of Minkan Gakudo, which means that it's purely private. There's no cooperation with the government, subsidies, or to be honest, there's not really much in terms of regulations that you need to worry about. We've got Kosetsu Koei, which is fully government, and you basically can't have anything to do with it. And in the middle there, we've got Kosetsu Min-ei, which means set up by the government, run by private business. And looking at the percentages there, it's about 22% that are Minkan Gakudo like us, 28% fully public, and then the majority, half of them are actually collaborations between the government and private business. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Kosetsu Min-ei, which is if you're receiving subsidies and you're in a kind of collaboration with probably the local government, but in some cases the prefectural government. I just want to preface everything that I say from now in that you need to do your own research, and everything that I asked the consultant, they said it depends on the area before they answered. So you really need to, these are going to be general rules of thumb. You need to check with your jichitai or your city government. So in terms of personnel, if you want to run one of these Kosetsu Min-ei Gakudos, you need 2 staff members for every 40 kids, and they have to have a Hokago Jido Shien in qualification, which is only a 24-hour course, so it's not a huge thing. And it does require them to be either Hoikushi, Shakai Fukushishi, or have a teacher's license. It's quite loose though, and it depends on the area. I think if demand is high, they'll say, well, if you have experience in the field, that's good enough. And in most cases, the demand is quite high. In most cases, you might need to be a kabushiki gaisha, a limited corporation, limited company. What is it exactly? Sorry, or an MPO. But in some cases as well, just being a sole proprietor is enough. Again, you need to check. This is not actually specified by the national government. It's determined by the local governments. In terms of insurance, there's nothing really huge there. You need to have Songai Hoken, which is what we have at our school. We pay about 30,000 yen a year for it. It's not a huge cost. Probably a lot of your schools already have this. Opening days and times are a little bit prohibitive. This is one of the things that makes it a really big endeavor. You need to be open at least 250 days a year. And in most cases, you're required to be open more than 8 hours on weekends and long holidays. I think Dale mentioned in his area, it was actually 11 hours, which would require 2 shifts to cover. And you need to be open for at least 3 hours on school days, and 8 hours is on the weekends or the longer holidays. In terms of space, I had some questions about space before the talk. You need 1.65 square meters of space per child. I don't think that's very much. You probably want to have a little bit more, but this is the national government standard for that. There's also other regulations about the number of toilets, whether you need to have a fridge, first aid station, and that sort of thing. But it's all governed locally, so I can't give a specific answer on that. Transportation, again, this depends on the local government. Sometimes it's a requirement you have to have transportation in order to qualify as a Kosetsu Mine Gakudo. The consulting company gave us this as a kind of the financial part of a business plan. And this is not particularly exciting, but I actually think that there's a lot more to be said about this. So this is an example. A basic Gakudo unit is 40 students. So essentially one Gakudo, they see that as being a capacity for 40 students. So in this case, the government would, this is in, add 3 zeros to the end here. So they would give you 1,000 yen as a subsidy, and you would collect roughly 4.8 million yen from the actual students. And then you could offer other options, such as piano, English, or whatever. In some cases, sometimes you can't. So your income would be about $200,000. So I'm making the conversion. It's no longer true with the exchange rate, but about 2,000 man yen for your income. For expenses, you have about, well, have a look there. Have a look at these. So this is personnel. What's that? Jigyohi. Facility costs. Electricity, water, heat, rent, snacks, and then other. We're giving you an expense of about 1,800 man yen, giving you a total profit of essentially 20. Can I convert these into dollars? And let's drop the fact that there's the exchange rate is 140 yen to a dollar. All right. So yeah, so about $20,000 or 2 million, a little bit more than 2 million yen. That's not a huge number. But the one thing that to be said about this is it doesn't matter if you fill up. You don't have to advertise. You don't have to get students. You set it up. You get the income from the government. And whether you have students there or not, it doesn't matter. It's stable. If you close for COVID, you get paid. There's no risk in it in that sense. Now, if you want to find out about opportunities like this, you need to go onto your city's website, and they will have postings, and they'll say, we want somebody to make a Gakudo in this area for this many students, and we'll pay you this much. And I've seen some of these, and I haven't been able to get through all of the details, but they're offering $200,000 up into $700,000-800,000 for larger projects. And usually there's a bid on this. So you might bid, yes, we want to do this. And then other people will put in a bid and somebody will win that bid and have the ability to open the facility. Dale, go ahead.
Yeah, is this the same as the Hokago Jido Club that I was looking to with you the other day?
Right, so I've seen that term as well. Again, the terms vary by area, which is incredibly annoying. But if the whole, what you're talking about, yes, it does sound like this. It would be a collaboration between the government and a private business.
Because one of the things that differ from what I found was that you actually get deductions after that. So that's the amount you get if you have 40 children, or between X amount and X amount. And say you get the subsidy or you get the lump sum for 40 children. If only 20 children turn up, then you get 20,000 yen per child taken off. So you have to actually give that back.
Right.
But the difference on that one was that you can charge whatever you want. So whether you charge 20,000 yen a day or 3,000 yen a month, you still get that subsidy from the government. It's up to you how much you charge.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. It's possible that it would be a kind of outlined in the document that you find on the city website. They'll say, you know, here's the deal that we're offering. and you're allowed to offer other classes, and you can charge up to this much or whatever. Most cases that they're allowing you to charge between 3 and maximum 10,000 yen to the actual students. But yeah, that might be true in your there. No, I did see some things about student numbers. It isn't like a hoikuen, if you're a Ninkagai hoikuen, it's per student, whereas it's a little bit more guaranteed in the case of Kosetsu Mine Gakudo. But yes, there might be a minimum number. I did see something like if you have less than 10, you'll get this much less or something like that.
For those that read Japanese, can I share the PDF that I found from our city? Would that be okay to pop it in the chat? I've never done it before, but it's just
I've got one tiny little slide left to finish on this, and then can I hand it over to you? Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about displaying it. I was just going to put it on there for someone to.
Oh, right. Sure.
Reference later.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, do put that into the comments. That could be great.
I've done it. It's as easy as drag and drop in. So this document just outlays all the information for our city, and it's based on if you are between 20 and 40 children, it's this bracket, and that's the 4.7 million. And if you're between 60 or up, you get a different bracket. But you get basically penalized, I suppose. It seems that they give you the subsidy, and then you register how many people came, and then they'll deduct that from your subsidy.
Right. Yeah, probably a little bit different from area to area.
It seems like a local government thing. It's whatever they're willing to offer, I think. Sounds like it.
Right. So the last thing that I kind of want to say about that, so this is the regulations for Minkan Gakudo, which is what we are, Dale and Robert and Rebecca is, if I'm not mistaken. So essentially, there aren't really any rules. You fall into the category of essentially like a juku or an eikaiwa, and there's no reason why you can't do it. I asked millions of different ways to this consultant, and they were like, that's fine. Dale mentioned that there was a rule about if you've got children more than 4 hours, maybe you have to have some special licenses on board. They assured me that that was not the case. So essentially, you're not going to get any subsidies, but you are free to essentially run a program how you like. The two caveats of that are just if you are going to be providing food, you need to register that with the Hokensho. And if you're providing transportation, register that with the Transport Bureau. And yeah, you might not be able to do it or whatever, but that's something that you should, be careful with and definitely report. Shall I go straight into pricing? Because I think that was the thing that I was seeing a lot of.
Yeah, definitely a lot of pricing questions.
So this is what the top here, you'll see what our Gakudo fees are. For 2 days a week, it's 29,700. 4 days a week, which is our maximum, is 50,000. Kids Duo, which is one of the fastest growing English Gakudo programs out there. I think they've got 125 schools across the country now. So this is something that's going quite rapidly. They go from 36,600 to 70,000+ for 5 days a week. And there's likely to be some other fees hidden in there as well. This is just sort of what I saw on their website. ECC, initially I saw they're now doing a program that's 2 days a week is 30,000, which is relatively cheap. 5 days a week, 48,000, which is actually quite cheap. But then after a little bit of scratching below the surface, I found that the English lessons are, if to add on the English lessons, it's another 15,000, and to add in programming, it's another 10,000. So that puts them up into that 70,000 kind of range. I would think that the 50,000 for 5 days a week number is kind of like a starting point, and you could kind of go up from there. Below that, you could probably go down a little bit as well, but it might be hard to make the numbers meet. How about you guys, Dale, Robert, Rebecca?
Well, I mean, ours is simple. It's 1,500 yen an hour for the after school, because we've just got an arbitrary number while we figure things out. But for our Saturday school, It's more by block, and it's 3-hour blocks, and those work out 20,000 yen a month for one session, or 36,000 yen a month for the full day, which is probably where it's going to go eventually. So it would be for 1 day a week would be 20,000 yen a month, gesha. But at the moment, because we can't guarantee whether it'll exist in 2 weeks, we just do it by the hour, 1,500 yen an hour at the moment.
Rebecca, you have an interesting kind of system that's a bit different than usual. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, well, probably pricing wise, I'm not really sure because I'm not the pricing person, but I think it's about the same as Kids Duel, first of all, for the set. But what we found was that parents are very, very interested in prepaid system. So we have something where they can buy 100 hours. And my son tells me that lasts 2 to 3 months usually. And the month where they buy 100 hours, then they get half off of their English lesson, whatever they're doing. If it's like a once a week or twice a week, I think even he gives them half off. And then for 50 hours, they can buy 50 hours and it's 25. If they buy 10, it's like a quarter of the month that they pay that much. So that has been a really popular system. And I think almost everybody uses it now instead of a set price. So my area is really looking for flexibility.
What's the average number of hours that someone that they buy?
I think 100 yen is for the
100
kid. It
100
really
hours.
depends. 100 hours, yeah. The kids who are coming like 2 or 3 times a week for lessons will usually do that. The kids who only use the Gakudo usually buy the 10 hours.
I saw a question from Ben there. Yeah. Go for it, Wayne. I've lost it there.
Yeah, he was just asking about how do you track hours, Rebecca?
We use Komiru. I don't know, it's a Japanese style system. I'm not exactly sure what it does all sorts of things, but it's very limited for me because it's so much Japanese. But the parents sign up for it. It's a little system where you have a QR code. The kid comes in and puts their little card there. So we know when they come in and when they go out again. We use app for everything, for their classes and Gakudo.
We have a system like that. We use Kodamon.
Oh yeah, Kodomon, yeah.
Yeah.
We used Kodomon for a while and we switched to Komiru for reasons that my son would be able to tell you, but I don't know.
He's more of the business manager.
He's the
side of
business
things,
guy.
So we charge, actually, I started out charging too low. So we started out charging 40,000. We're up to 50, about where we've changed it to 50,000 now. One thing that we did do when I first started for the pricing is, well, of course, it was 7 years ago and I wasn't sure how this was going to work. We're getting rid of it next year. Is we give a 1 month Taiken at a discounted price, but so with the first month Taiken, I think it's half price, but that's also the month that they have. But they have to buy all the books, all the books and everything that we have. So a lot of parents was asking, well, can we just do watch for a day or something like that? And I said, well, usually they want to do it in April. Of course, most of the kids in April, it's hit and miss with the school and everything like that. So we'd say, please at least do 1 month. And then we never had any problems with, I think maybe the 7 years, we only had one person that didn't stay. Everybody else stayed. We're to a point now where next year we won't do the Taiken month anymore because we're already full. So we've already filled all the slots for all the graduating students for this year. And actually we're almost 3 years back now. So we've already got kids. So next year we're full, was it 2003, 2004, we're already full. So I'm in the process of looking, because of that, I'm in the process of looking at other places to open. So that might be something, if it's new in your area and you haven't thought about, and you want to try it, maybe a Taiken month or some type of Taiken, that's very common in this area, might be something to look at, to try to do, especially when you first open, if you're trying to first open something like that.
Got a great staffing question here.
Yep.
Do you have dedicated English staff for just the Gakudo, or do you share them with other programs at your schools?
Can I start the answer on that in the context of like a basic kind of business plan? I'm going to show some numbers that kind of make sense to me, and I want this. I put this up as an example for you guys to criticize, discuss. This is not what I'm saying. This is how you do it, and this is your business plan. Not at all. It's just kind of a starting point for the discussion. I'll talk a little bit about what kind of staff you need, what kind of expenses you might have. So let me throw that up, and then we can jump into that question. Right. So, okay, the first thing I'm going to show here is kind of like what I would see as like a break-even point on a small Gakudo program. So if we're looking at our fees being, actually, let's start with expenses first. Rent, I'm thinking somewhere around 150,000 yen. Again, depends on area, depends on size and that sort of thing, but you probably want to have a decent sized space if you're keeping kids for quite a good period of time. Now, staff, for us, we have a staff member part-time. They're 5 hours a day. So I put this number at about 1,200 yen an hour as a kind of staff salary part-time. Teacher, 280,000 could be more or less in your case. I would suggest having a teacher that is more experienced and is able to deal with not just a Genki teacher who's really great at kind of like making kids have fun, but a teacher that kind of knows children and can deal with issues and stuff that come up, because they do. They will come up the longer you're open, right? Then again, if you've got a full-time teacher here, you might be able to use their hours in the evening to teach other classes. You might be able to use their hours in the morning to do other classes and that sort of thing. So you could probably cut down on that number. Other, I said 50,000 yen. That might be low. I don't know what you guys think. But that's, you know, heating, electricity, internet, that kind of thing. So expenses for a basic sort of startup here would be about 600,000 yen. So the break-even point on that I'm looking at as being about 12 students. If they're coming 5 times a week and they're paying 50,000 yen, which, you know, again, that could be higher or lower. With the entry fees, this is our entry fee is 20,000, a little bit more than 20,000 yen. So I'm thinking 12 students divided by 12 months. In your first year, you might get an extra 20,000 yen a month on average for that. So this, I would say the break-even point is somewhere around 12 students. Next, I'll show what this would look like beyond that point when it gets closer to capacity. But what do you guys think? Do you think you can say it in the contents, or you comments, or you can just jump in and say something? Do you think this is a reasonable looking kind of income and expenses projection?
Can you hear me? I forgot if I muted myself or not.
I hear you.
Yeah, that's very similar, except for the rent, because this is Central Tokyo. Except for the rent, that's very similar to what my son was looking up this last week. Very similar, actually, except for the rent. Yeah.
Rent would be double that or something, yeah?
Yeah, double.
Right. Yeah, and then I think, I mean, because the rent is higher there, you're probably going to go higher than 50,000 for your fees to cover it, I would imagine. Yeah, anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I've never looked at it as a separate entity because it's always an expansion to what I'm doing. But I think it's going to be how long is a piece of string. I think looking at your local area and what your feeling is on the amount that parents will charge, like look at what the local jukus are charging and everything. Don't look at Gakudos as your competition, because it's a completely different thing. I'd be looking at more private places that offer some kind of value to the time your children are there. Because if you try and I saw someone in the comments saying it's hard to compete with a 3,000 yen a month Gakudo, but you're not a 3,000.
No, you're not. You're not competing with them at all. And I think if you're looking certainly at demographics of your area, it's going to be how many parents are working, how much demand is there for hoiku, and a little bit of the economics as well. Something like this does cost more, but it isn't something that is strictly for rich people either. I think that it is, parents that have a need for their kids to be watched, and they don't want them to be wasting their time. They want them to be, learning and having good experiences.
Actually,
if you have a kids duo popping up in your area, that's a great sign. Don't think, oh no, they're here, we can't do it. That's great. That's building more demand and creating more awareness of the product type.
actually, I want to push back on that a little bit. If you're going to have the word Gakudo inside your name, or you're going to call yourself some type of Gakudo, Gakudos are your going to be people that you have to look at as competition, because the thing is if so. One reason I went 5 days, and I call myself an after school program, is because I'm not looking just to watch. At the initial part, I wasn't just looking at watching the kids. I wanted the English part of it, is what it was. It was a way to kind of improve my eikaiwa, if you will, and things like that. As I started going into it more, I started having more parents needing the Gakudo part of it. And so what I tried to do is I tried to keep the same English standard, but still give the same services as Gakudos and things like that. And what I found out is the parents will pay, like the parents that need the kids for the Gakudos and stuff, they will scratch or scrounge or whatever they have to do to pay that extra money to be able to give their child that chance of going into that level. So I would actually say that if you're going to call yourself a Gakudo and you're going to try to be open 5 days a week, then that is the market that you're doing. You're just at the high end of the market, to where that's the lower end of the market. If you're trying to go against Jukus and other eikaiwas, then that's what you are. That's how you're presenting yourself. So I would kind of disagree a little bit on that point. I would say that your mindset, if you're going to open up an after school program or something that's 5 days a week, you can't have a mindset as an eikaiwa owner. You need to change your mindset a little bit, as into more of, you're an elementary, you're not it's not preschool, so therefore, you don't need to take care of little kids, but you're still taking care of fairly young children. And you need to have that mindset that, the kids will be here every day, or things like that. So that's another reason that I went 5 days. So I could be wrong about it, but that's just kind of how I've been able to kind of differentiate myself, because there are other eikais around here, and we do have an eikaiwa side to our business. And when parent comes up to us, and it's been really different type of people who's gone to our after school program. At first, it was people with more money and things like that. But as we moved into longer and people started finding out about us, the parents, what we try to do is we try to give the parents everything that they can do Monday through Friday. And then on Saturday and Sunday, they don't have to worry about other things. I mean, they're able to spend time with their kids and do those type of things. So and that's kind of how we've tried to approach it.
Dale, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, hopefully I wasn't ranting, but I just kind of disagree with that a little bit.
Not at all.
No, I think there's a midpoint there, because if you're thinking about the operations of it, if it's kind of like when you do a Ninkagai Hoikuen, when you're not directly competing with Hoikuens in the area, but if the children are in, then you need to hold yourself to at least the standards of the Hoikuen. So when you get children come in, you won't be able to take days off willy-nilly and everything, because instead of a Hoikuen, they're going to you. And if you have a Gakudo, and their choice is being, I can enroll them in the waiting list for the elementary school Gakudo, and I know that rain, sleet, snow, or shine, there'll be a place for my children there. But then if Mr. John Kaiwa opens one up and he's like, oh, there's a little bit of snow and we're not going to open, or we're not going to open for this week, or we're going to do that, then suddenly you are going to be compared. And I think you need to look at the Gakudos and look at the minimum requirements or the basic requirements of someone that would go there, and you need to at least meet them. But I don't think financially you're competing with them, but I think operationally you need to at least meet their standards.
Okay, well said. I think you've kind of brought it around quite nicely there. No, and I would agree. I think speaking a bit to what Robert said as well, the point is you're kind of stepping out of being just a language school, and you're offering a very important service that they depend on. And within that, there's value, but there's also, I mean, to kind of segue into a slightly different thing, there's a bit more security in terms of the market and what you're offering. You're not just offering a hobby, you're offering an essential service that working mothers, perhaps double income families, are depending on. And then so what I was saying, that you're not competing, I'm thinking in terms of price. I think that they are the basic fact that your children are being taken care of is in very much the same, but it is just a place where my kids can be, or are they getting a much more enriching experience, and are we willing to pay for that? So I think it's separate in that sense. Okay, we're getting real close to the end. I kind of stopped at the break-even point, which is a bit of a downer. So why don't I show the next slide where things get a little bit better. So this is if you were full to capacity with one teacher. In Dale's case, you'd probably want to have 2 teachers, at least a part-timer. That's kind of coming in here as well, if you want to keep that 1-to-6 ratio. But I would say with 20 students, and that's really quite full for a full-time teacher and a staff member, your income would be roughly around 1 million yen a month, and the entry fees would add in there as well. You could be adding in other kinds of fees for, I don't know, materials or whatever extra add-ons and things like that. But this would give you a monthly profit about 428,000 and a yearly profit of about a little bit over 5 million yen. Which I think is not bad. That would be very busy at that stage, and you'd probably already be at the stage of thinking, okay, I'm going to add another teacher, and maybe we're going to want to go above that. But that's not bad. If you are the teacher yourself, then again, of course, you're cutting down on the largest expense on the list. But yeah,
there are a couple of things that I would put in there. Maybe twice a year, put in some type of heating or air conditioning fee.
Yeah, charging for that. Events as well. You can charge extra for summer school and events and all that as well on the outside.
Yeah. I mean, we also parents also have to buy books twice, at least at the beginning for sure, and then usually halfway through they'll have to buy other books. So we'll get profit from that. We also do YLE. So since we do things like YLE and stuff like that, that helps. I don't know, there's some money that we make off of that also. So within like the what you set up there is just kind of off the tuition, not necessarily all the income that can come.
I was keeping it simple. Yeah, I think for sure you can. There's lots of if you look at again something like ECC's page, they kind of hide a lot of the stuff, but actually if you sign up, it's like, oh yep, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this, and suddenly there's a lot more being charged. Dale.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something for those that are just starting out. Maybe, I'm sure anyone that's been around for a while knows this, but I came into it thinking, why are all these places having these hidden fees and extras and everything? It's dishonest. I don't like it. I'm just going to put a lump sum. And I did that, and it made it more difficult because the parents expect that. They expect there to be a fee and expect there to be all these other fees in it.
Definitely.
They don't hold it in such high regard to say there are no hidden fees. It doesn't really. So all you're doing is making it a higher barrier of entry by going, oh, that's expensive. And then afterwards you say, oh, there are no extra fees. And they go, oh, okay. Like I've even had parents say to me that that's just par for the course. It's what it is. So don't be afraid to follow suit and have the aircon die and all this and that and the other and the re-registration every year. It's just expected. It's normal. And yeah, you don't need to be afraid of it.
I agree. I think we've kind of got where we're going, and we're up on at 3 o'clock now. I'm happy to stay myself, and if anyone wants to kind of just fire away questions, you can drop off or stay in and continue to chat with us. Let me just open it up there. Yeah. Wayne, did you want to check out some questions or anything like that?
Yep, sure thing. We have one was kind of like a more general question that may need to be elaborated on. If Gator Gabe is still there, he's saying it's a trade-off between freedom and responsibilities. He's saying less freedom entails more responsibilities. Is that right? Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Is that from like being tied to the government or not being tied to the government?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you're
We
still
missed
here,
the timing
Gabe,
on that one, possibly.
yeah. But here's another one in the meantime, while he's maybe thinking about that. Hours of operation, are you open Saturdays, Sundays? Does that affect your enrollments, in your opinion?
No, we're not open on Saturday or Sunday. We're closed holidays too. We give a year schedule at the beginning in April. These are the days that we're open. And actually, we're closed 1 week during the summer, during the Obon time. And we're closed during we close on the 28th in the winter time too. But we give a 1 year schedule and show this will be the days that we're open and these are the days that are closed. The only thing that we do close for is typhoons. So basically what we say is, if it's too dangerous to go to school, it's too dangerous to come here. But it's COVID stuff, we've stayed open and things like that.
How about how many weeks per year?
It's the whole from April. April 1st is actually, or the first Monday of April. So if it being April 1st, the older students, it's our orientation day. So only like the new students come in, we do an orientation, get them up to speed. And then April 2nd would be the other kids. And we go all the way till March 31st the next year. And within that year, so it's just like a school schedule. Within that year, I don't know, we're pretty much open the whole time.
I will say that Saturdays, depending on your area, I know Saturdays is the most profitable day of the week for us to be open. It's by far and away the most popular. People will join it happily. They pay an extortionate amount of money compared to what else they're willing to pay for. Saturdays are really important to parents of young children. They'd love to have a Saturday to themselves, and if they can get if they can get their conscience rubbed by having it be a valuable experience that you're providing, then all the more for it. But Saturdays is huge for us.
So Dale, Ryan is saying, so are you open 6 days a week? And I'm guessing you've got a separate thing on Saturdays. It's not part of the program. The kids aren't coming every day during the week and on Saturday, right?
No, completely separate kids. But
right.
yeah, I imagine it's different for different areas. Like I saw Rebecca had a bit of a reaction to that.
Almost nothing. I mean, even classes. I saw, I opened up on Saturday because and I've been open on Saturdays for 5 or 6 years, and it's our slowest day.
Wow.
We even have schools are open a lot of times on Saturdays. So almost no one comes. I really think it's different. The parents are both working and they want, this is time we can finally have with our kids. They do not come.
Wow. For us, it's the opposite. It's actually the most profitable. It's not where my heart is, but it's the most profitable part. And I probably wouldn't have been able to survive without Saturdays.
Yeah, Rebecca, you're one of the only people I've met who's had that situation where Saturday is not a really big day for you. So definitely an area thing is.
I think it's an area thing.
There.
Yeah.
Or maybe a pool of people that maybe don't know about it. It might be an advertising thing, but if you have schools in the local area, like some local governments, the education system by city varies so wildly with what they can do and what they do. You might find that in your area you have a lot of elementary schools that are just open on Saturdays or something, or have things going on.
And you never know which Saturday it's going to be. It changes all the time. So yeah, we don't do it.
I think I just saw a follow-up from that question before. So he's talking about work, life kind of experience. Are you going to be super busy and stuff like that? That comes down to how you've managed your school. If you're going to open up a Gakudo or a after-school program, you need to set up your company. Well, in my opinion, you should set it up to where you're not the teacher. You're the manager of it. Otherwise, you are going to be super busy because you're going to be there all the time. So
Yeah,
if you
good.
if you don't want to be there all the time, then you need to set it up to where you're the manager of it, not the teacher of it.
I've been trying to do that for the last 3 years unsuccessfully.
So
it's
actually,
hard.
Yeah, easier said than done for sure.
for our after school program, we hired a full-time Japanese person that takes care of all the sale or the sales of it. Well, we don't really sell anymore, but takes care of all the explanations of it, takes care of the relationship with the parents, the financial charges the parents and everything like that. That teacher also takes care of making sure all the Japanese or the native teachers are where they're supposed to be and things like that. So that way I'm managing that person and that person's managing the after school program, since I do have other things to worry about.
Yeah, we have nearby. We have a international university, and so if you haven't figured that out already, when you've got, if it's a low responsibility position and it's just for like supervising, or if you, for example, our case where what you want is personalities and not necessarily deep language acquisition knowledge, it can be really good to have a good relationship with the student body of a local international university to fill gaps. But it's really hard to find someone that cares as much as you about any part of your school that you're going to do. That's something that I've struggled with. But I think if it doesn't work without you, then it doesn't work. But
Yeah.
It's hard to let go.
If I can kind of tie it in a little bit to what Gabe might be thinking, certainly the ultimate goal might be to get it so that you're not kind of in the heat all the time. But everything, to build anything, there's steps, right? So you're probably going to want to build the thing and master it, and hopefully not spend too much time, as Dale seems to be starting from square one again. But hopefully you can get to a stage where you're really happy with the program that you've created, and then understand why it's successful, and then translate that into perhaps training procedures and ways to actually get other people to do it as well as you, and then that's a whole other stage that can take years, right? So leaping from opening it to just being able to be hands off, I don't know, it hasn't worked that way for me in most cases.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between being hands off and not in the room. I mean, hands on and not in the room. So like the person that I'm hired to take care of that, it's my responsibility as the owner to make sure I hire people that have my vision and have what I want, right? So actually, if I can't find other people that's as good as me, then I'm not really a business owner. I'm just kind of a teacher that's trying to get more students. So there's a I think it comes down to a difference of what you're trying to be, especially with the after school, like a Gakudo or an after school program. Like if you're just trying to, if you're only the one that's able to do it and you're not able to find people to do it, I mean, of course, nobody's ever going to be able to do it as good as you or you're feeling, but you should be able to find people that can share your vision and to be able to follow up on that. Otherwise, it's never going to be able to grow.
Yeah, the one thing I had that might be the perspective that he's coming from is that if it's a Gakudo, then you're moving into a next stage of responsibility for children. You're not only a lesson based pay and receive relationship. You're actually in a position of care, and
Absolutely.
so from that perspective, yeah, you might be busier because you're less likely to be able to say, I don't really feel like it today. Whereas maybe some lesson-based eikaiwas can do that. I don't know. I mean, when we started a hoikuen, it very much like some of the parents, they really rely on you, and that's a big difference to just offering a service.
Can I just do one quick, sorry to interrupt the flow there. I think it's quite a productive discussion. I want to do one shout out here. I just looked at who is here, and there's quite a lot of people still with us, which is fantastic. But there's going to be another event coming up on November 27th. And the topic is the future of eikaiwa. And again, looking at some of these things like market trends and how we can kind of future proof ourselves and our livelihood and what we do. So that's November 27th. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 5. It's a long day event, and it's a hybrid event. So I think the live part of it is going to be in Shiga at Eric. Do you want to talk about this one?
Hi, everyone. So yeah, I think you pretty much said most of it, Adam, but November 27th from 10 to 5 in Shiga, Omihachiman Shiga, which is about 30 minutes from Kyoto. We'll host an event. We have, I think, 7 speakers lined up. They'll each give short presentations, kind of about what's going well in their schools, and maybe some areas they want to improve. Gakudo edition, of course, would be one of those for sure. And then after that, we'll sit down for kind of a roundtable discussion, both in person and on Zoom. And yeah, just basically a lot of changes are happening in the market. And I think it's good that we all kind of stick together and share ideas. And so that's why we're doing it.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Looking forward to that.
But more information on the EOG group soon in the future. So.
Cool, thanks.
Actually, funny enough, that's the one reason I did start my after school program, was because I didn't see, like, I didn't want to see myself 65 years old. That's just me personally, still running, only teaching at an Eikaiwa. I wanted to be my company to be able to grow, to have better financial future. So like, the up and downs of 5 kids joining, you have that great feeling, and then later 3 kids drop. So your money's not really going up to where, an after school program or a Gakudo program is something that it is a little bit more stable on a month, as far as like a monthly base payment compared to what I feel the Eikaiwa industry is.
Yeah, I think it can be. I mean, looking at the trends that I put up at the beginning, number of kids going down, but certainly the need for quality childcare, I think is going up and is going to continue to go up. One of the things that I didn't really get into, but the international school market has, as I showed before, in the last 8 years has increased by 24%. And I think before that, there was a much bigger explosion. It's something that kind of went from almost nothing to quite big in the last 20 years. And internationally, actually, the same thing is happening in most countries. So I think that also is part of the trend of childcare. I think it's also really great that any of you that have the international schools, that you're raising kind of more awareness of the fact that if you want a kid to be bilingual, they need to spend more than a little bit of time, right? So I think it could be creating more. This is a lot of speculation on my part, but I do hope that the name of English Gakudo, whatever it does end up becoming, becomes a sort of a draw in the market and becomes something that's more kind of important, and hopefully is something that the Japanese market looks at quality foreign teachers like us to spearhead or to be a big part of.
Yeah, I think like CLIL and then immersion based stuff, because every time they do research on it, it's always a minimum of 3 hours a day, and yet it's still the 50 minutes a week, and I just don't think it's sustainable. So everything that we offer, we do have those lessons. We only have them on one day, and it's only because the first thing we opened was that, because we needed some income. But whenever someone joins that, we say, look, don't expect your child to be able to speak English. Yes, they'll be familiar with a foreign teacher, and they'll learn some words, and they'll have a bit of fun and maybe enjoy it afterwards. But if you really want to do it, the reason why we have a nursery and have a preschool is because it's the only way that's effective, unless your child would excel anyway. And the next step, so you've got the 50-minute lesson just for a bit of fun. Even our 3-hour and 6-hour sessions on Saturdays. Because I think there was a question in the chat. We're open 3-hour morning, 3-hour afternoon session. The afternoon session only just started up. But even those, we say with the big caveat, it's up to your child. They could do great here, but they'd probably do great on their own if they did. It just gives them the opportunity. If you actually want a child to be bilingual, they need 3 hours a day. And it's been proven time and time again that that's the way that works.
Ryan, I saw your comment there, and I think that's an important kind of perspective to throw out. So do you want to jump in and say that?
Sure. I'm not going to debate that having more is better, because it is. And you're gonna definitely, if you're gonna want to be bilingual, you need to have a lot more time in there. So I'm not debating with that, but I thought the characterization of what you're going to get in 1 hour a week was misleading, because we're getting a lot more than that from our students in 1 hour a week. And I think someone mentioned earlier about like feeling like they wouldn't be able to pass the YLE exams at 1 hour a week and stuff like that. We're not having trouble getting kids passing YLE exams at 1 hour a week. I think it's a completely different situation, but if you're really good with that time that you have with them, you can get a hell of a lot out of your kids in 1 hour a week. But
yeah, that's just the way that we say it here. So I'm not saying that no one can. I'm just saying that our lessons aren't geared for that. So that our lessons, what we do is we take the choice that we can either spend 45 minutes or 50 minutes with this clear goal of I want them to pass this test or get this vocabulary, or we can just say that, look, we're not going to push them. We're not going to have high expectations of them. If you want them to just have fun, then this is what we offer. Not saying it's impossible, but that it's not, we don't want anyone joining with the expectation that they're going to have amazing results in those 50 minutes a week. But yeah, I see some people doing amazing things in short lessons. Some really talented teachers can get a lot done.
Yeah, no, it is a good point. Thanks for mentioning that, Ryan. And I do agree. I certainly don't want to poo-poo an hour a week. And that's what I've done for a long time. We still do have at least half of our students that are doing just an hour a week. Yeah, so certainly you can achieve some amazing things. Certainly, I think with additional resources, more time outside, I think that the one of the reasons why an hour a week has become such a mainstay of the English market for kids is that they're so busy. I mean, they have all these other nut-I-Go-To, which is something we've touched on a few times, right? So really efficiently using their time can be a factor as well, right? A really good 1 hour focused lesson, some focus, some extensive listening or reading at home, that sort of thing. Certainly great things that can be done, yeah.
Yeah, I think the big kicker is that the big thing to focus on is that only focusing on a new language for an hour a week and then to achieve fluency in it is a massive undertaking. Like with home practice at home and with the child being interested in it and putting their attention to it elsewhere during the week, yeah, it can be done. But if they're only thinking about that language for the hour and they've finished their lesson and they're like, okay, and go home, you'd have to be a genius to learn a new language in an hour a week, or maybe 45 years of doing it.
Let's see if we've got any other questions here.
One just came in. Do you think it would be a bad idea to ask the moms or dads of your students for ideas about starting a Gakudo? I get along pretty well with them.
I wouldn't ask for ideas. I would ask if they're interested to join it.
And they might not tell you the truth.
Yes, okay, so I have a lot to say on that one.
They probably won't tell you the truth.
Yeah, so the story, exactly. So Rebecca's story that she told before, she asked, they said yes, she opened it, they didn't come. I had the opposite, where I asked everybody and I had everyone say no, and I opened it anyways, and it filled up with different students. So yeah, your students might not be your potential customers for the Gakudo. They might, ideally it's a whole other group.
Well, that's why I started with one. And then actually the group of students, after I did open it, the parents that said they would, it took them a year to finally come, to come. So right. When you can maybe put an anchor out and ask your parents and see how it feels, but that's just an anchor and take it for what it's worth.
They might not need after school care. So they're a different segment. Yeah.
You can get a good idea of the different pockets of cultures that are around, because I'm sure you have some children go to this school, some children go to this school, and I'll often have the same conversation with every single one of my parents that I know goes to a different school and is quite vocal and approachable, because you'll get an idea of what they think, and it will give you a kind of idea of what's going on around. Also, what other people are going to, what days they're free. I certainly wouldn't ask them. I wouldn't take much on what they say, but I definitely ask them, and maintaining that communication with people around is always useful. But yeah, what they say and what they'll do, especially if they're trying to keep their little secret, or if they're sometimes they can be a great help and sometimes they can be a hindrance sometimes.
So, I don't know. Actually, I'd like to ask Dale a question, not to harp on a point, but, and if it's something that's going to take a long time, I'll talk to you later, Dale. But actually, he was saying, I might have misunderstood you, but you were kind of saying that you're going with the expectations of kind of not like they're achieving a goal or something, or not putting goals on them, or I might be mischaracterizing that, but we actually do the opposite of telling the parents that, hey, our goal, we set certain goals and things for children. They're not hard goals, but we're saying, hey, after, some students are able to, so we're all leveled I'm leveled everything by the YLE. So that's how we've leveled. So we have 2 levels of starters, 2 levels of movers, 2 levels of flyers. And what we're telling parents is, after the first year, some students will be able to move up to movers, but some students won't be able to do that. So we temper the expectations, but we do set standard goals for the students to reach. Like, I feel that sometimes that's it's not that goals are bad or anything like that, but without expectations, it's kind of like, it's like practicing all the time, but never being in a basketball game, or shooting baskets all the time, but never, language is a skill, right? And if you're not to just practice your skills one time, but even in sports and things like that, you need to have something to do. I'm not saying a test is necessarily the only way of doing that, but it's a way of showing. That's why we also do the happy okai in December. That's a different way for other kids to be able to show their English skills and things like that. So we do have goals. The YLE is just one way of showing, hey, this is how our students are progressing. The happy okai, the other different things, that the summer camps and other things are other ways that we show how the students progress and things like that. There are goals for everything. So I don't know, how do you talk to parents that are saying, I don't really understand? I mean, if there's no goals and you're just kind of speaking in English, how do you justify that to the parents? Maybe that's not a good
right, well,
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is 2 different approaches to the same thing. Like I come from early years, and so everything is about early childhood education, and I base everything on stuff that's used in native environments, and I don't go towards the language acquisition side. And so what I do is I come from, for example, a unique child, from like characteristics of effective learning and play-based learning, and I'm applying that to Eikaiwa. So I'm coming from a foreign land. So I'm not coming from the language acquisition side and then translating that to children. I'm coming from the native childhood development side and then applying that to Eikaiwa. So they're valid. It's absolutely like leveled readers. Like my son reads Roald Dahl books at 6 years old, and since 4 years old is at a reading age of about 10 without a formal lesson in the subject. But he's been in that language. So how can I do this quickly?
Well, I mean,
it's valid, and it's just 2 different approaches. And so how I speak to the parents about that is I make sure they understand what the expectations of us from us are, and that is that they're going to spend 50 minutes having a good time in English. They're going to get some input. They're going to be encouraged to speak, and what comes out of it at the end is not dictated by us. And most 95% of the parents that have that conversation, they come out at the end going, oh yeah, it's great, and they usually join. But there's nothing to say there's this right way and this wrong way. It's just the way that I choose to do it is this way, because I've just started YLE, and so it's new for me, the YLE, and I have a separate time for that. So I have these afternoon sessions that are specifically designed around the goal of covering YLE and achieving the tests there. From the Wednesday afternoon lessons, the short ECOA lessons, the goal is for children that would ordinarily not have that experience to have it, and then have the opportunity to be able to, not that we're going to dictate what they're going to be able to do. I don't know, does that?
I think it's great. I think I'm going to jump in and I'm going to kind of try to tie a little ribbon on this and say goodbye. But I think that was a really interesting kind of way that the discussion went into the end. And it's, again, one of the kind of things that are at the crux of it. Whether you're going to go more evidence and more goal-based, you're going to be a bit more free, give them more autonomy. So the one thing that I hope everyone got out of the talk was that they got a big range of perspectives, which is really revealed kind of in this last conversation as well. The idea that any kind of Gakudo program can be something that's a lot more free and giving and focusing more on children's kind of experience in that sort of journey. It can be a little bit more kind of academically focused. It can be somewhere in between. It can be classes, it can be stations, it can be open, it can be, they can have lots of time to talk together, or they can be doing things on tablets sometimes. Really, whatever your sort of passion is, or the way you feel children's education looks, that should kind of be your guide in the whole thing. And if you already have a Gakudo, then you probably know this. And if you haven't and you're thinking about doing it, your first shot's probably not going to be the thing that it ends up being. You need to kind of get started, try things out for yourself, iterate, and then at some point it'll click for you, hopefully. But yeah, I think it's a great journey. It has been a great journey for me, and I've enjoyed talking to you guys about your journey in opening a Gakudo program. So I hope for that was all helpful. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you aren't friends with me on Facebook now, send me an invite and